And I'm here with Nick Kalikas from MmaOddsBreakers.com. I know you've heard his name shouted out on the LFA broadcast. So I know a lot of you people heard about him. I'm really excited that he's decided to come on the show tonight. We're going to break down this full card for Tyron Woodley versus Gilbert Burns. So, Nick, you ready to get going, break down this full card?
I am, man. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to this. You're the man. I love watching your videos. Love having you on our site as well. So looking forward to this big time.
Yep, for sure. Yep. The first fight, I'll let you go first on this one. It's Chris Gutierrez taking on Vince Morales. It's a bantamweight fight. Both these guys are kind of middling, but what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a competitive fight for sure. I mean, right now, looking over at Don Best, it looks like we are basically at a pick'em, minus 110 or so. I mean, some places now have flipped to Morales as a slight favorite. Some places have it exactly a pick'em as well. So there's definitely more support coming in Morales' way. Which I can understand it somewhat, but at the same time, I think where the current price is now, I'm leaning a little bit more towards Gutierrez, in my opinion. I think he's got the better overall striking. I think he's going to be able to keep this fight upright as well. And I think as the fight progresses, he's just going to be able to land more clean shots and kind of have a more diverse striking skill set, so to speak. And I give the edge to Gutierrez at the current price right now, minus 110. So a slight lean towards him, but it is definitely going to be a barn burner. I think it's going to be a close fight. And if it does hit the scorecards, we're probably going to see, a 29-28 unanimous decision, or maybe even a split decision type of fight, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really close. And actually, when I first was initially going over the fight, and I don't know if this is going to be to my benefit or not to my benefit, but once I figured out that they're going to have this smaller cage, this 25-foot cage instead of the 30-foot cage, that kind of impacted some of my decisions for this card. And because of that, I was going to be on Gutierrez because he's a guy who likes to utilize a lot of kicks, movement, kind of is a point fighter. Reminds me a little bit of a guy like John Makdessi, someone like that. And Vince Morales comes forward, uses his boxing, and I think maybe in the smaller cage, he might have a little bit more success. And it was a close fight. Like you said before that, it was kind of a toss-up to me. So just because of that, I did, switch to Vince Morales. And it's not a play for me. I mean, I don't really have a strong lean either way. But, I switched my pick to Vince Morales. And a lot of that was because of the small cage there. But, yeah, with the line, Gutierrez did open the favorite initially, correct?
Yes, he opened the initial favorite, and I believe one of our guys, Josh P, got Morales at like plus 170 at one point. Wow. Yeah, so he got tremendous value. I mean, at plus 170, there's no doubt who you're going to go with, right? I mean, it's absolutely, you got to take Morales at that. So hats off to Josh for grabbing that price. But that said, I mean, like I said, for now, I think it is going to be a very competitive fight, split decision possible type of fight. So I can understand what you're saying. And you know what? The cage, a 25-foot cage at the apex does definitely have plays a high role across the board in all these fights and upcoming cards as well. I think you definitely have to consider that. There's not going to be as much room for some of these strikers to kind of float around a little bit and, use their angles quite as much. So I think, the more pressure fighters, the grinders type are going to come in and probably utilize a smaller cage size and have a little bit more success. But I still think this is going to be a barn burner. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be an awesome fight. It's a good one to start off the card for sure.
Yeah. And then up next, I'll go first on this one. We got Luis Smolka versus Casey Kenney. Another bantamweight fight, and this is, it's a fun fight. It should be a lot of scrambles, probably a lot of work on the ground. I do feel on the feet, Smolka has improved a lot. I see a lot of people talking about Smolka's last performance against Ryan McDonald, where he did get that left hook knockout, pretty nice knockout there. But I would still favor Kenney on the feet. I think he throws, the tighter punches, more volume. I think he's probably going to be the guy that hits a little harder, is going to be going forward. And I think that just in terms of the grappling, Kenny's a really good top control rider type guy, very good takedowns. I don't see Smolka taking him down. I think Kenney, conversely, could probably take Smolka down almost at will. And Smolka does have that potential to get a sweep submission. Kenney has gotten tired late in some fights. But overall, I mean, I've seen Kenney ride out a guy we're going to talk about next, Brandon Royval, a submission guy for 5 rounds. And he's never been submitted. I believe Smolka's won 14 of his 16 fights by finish. Kenny's never been finished before. So I'm leaning towards Kenney pretty heavily. I think that he should get the win there. And I do think it's probably going to be by decision.
Yeah, I agree with you completely here. I just think, I love Smolka, man. It's hard not to love the guy, right? He shows up and he puts on outstanding fights all the time. And watching him on the ground is phenomenal. I mean, he's one of the best scramblers, one of the best grapplers really in the weight class. But styles make fights, and I think Kenney can weather all that storm. I mean, he could get top position. Like you said, he's the better wrestler. He's definitely the better striking artist on the feet as well. So he could dictate where this fight goes. And as you said, I mean, he's been in there with good submission artists in the past, and he survived that. So I'd find it hard to believe that Smolka is going to probably get the submission here. And if he doesn't get the submission, he's probably going to lose his fight. I mean, it should get interesting at times, though. Like you said, maybe a few sweeps, or maybe, Smolka will find himself in a great position along the way. But still, I think Kenney is game. I mean, he's an underrated fighter overall. And we've seen some really solid performances from Kenney in the UFC. And again, before he entered the UFC, I mean, going back and watching footage from there as well, you knew the guy was ready to make his debut and to make waves, really. So I really like what I see in Kenney. I mean, the current price right now, though, let me see here. It's about -270, -280s out there for Kenney. So as far as a bet goes, I'd stay away from it personally, because I mean, there might be a little bit of value still left in Kenney, but if it's under -300 or so, but I'm not going to force anything. And I think Smolka, again, he's slick enough on the ground at times. You just never know. And I think there's better spots amongst this card and possibly the upcoming cards that you can kind of pick your spots and you don't have to force anything. So as a pure pick, though, there's no question about it. Kenney should definitely win this fight.
Yep, I totally agree with you. And then I'll let you go next on this one, Tim Elliott versus Brandon Royval. What do you think about that with the newcomer coming in?
I like Royval a lot, man. I think he's a game fighter. I'm glad that they brought him into the UFC. He's been one of these guys that's kind of an up-and-coming fighter that is getting better. If you look at his fights, I mean, the guy's getting more dangerous. He's getting more confidence. So he deserves a shot in the UFC. It's just a tough spot for him to make his debut against a guy like Tim Elliott. I mean, that's the unfortunate thing. But I'll tell you what, man, Tim Elliott, he's been a little bit of a roller coaster lately. I mean, the thing with me is obviously if Tim Elliott doesn't get caught and subbed here and finished here, or even get maybe caught on the feet, which I doubt, I think if it's going to end by finish, it might be Royval catching Elliott sleeping, so to speak, on the ground. But if he doesn't do that, obviously you have to lean towards towards Elliott, because I think he can kind of grind out Royval in this spot. He could get some takedowns, control the tempo of the fight along the way. And obviously the people that Elliott's been in the octagon with thus far have been, I mean, just world class, obviously. I mean, almost every fight that he has is top-notch competition. So for me, to see Elliott lose this fight would be kind of sad, but at the same time, the betting lines are competitive. I mean, right now we're seeing the current line, Tim Elliott about $170, $180 out there, $175. So it's not like he's getting a lot of respect at the betting window. I mean, it's staying fairly competitive in this spot. And I think you can't count Royval out. I mean, like I said, I think he's just getting better. And that's the thing. A lot of people could say, look back at some of Royval's fights and, he hasn't finished everybody he's fought, or a guy like you said, Kenney. But I think Kenney actually has better submission defense than Elliott. So for me, I'm very concerned here. If I wouldn't back Elliott at the price, even if it seems like a low price, I would stay away from this fight. It's a dog or pass situation for me. But I do think Elliott probably weathers that storm, doesn't get caught, and comes away with a unanimous decision type of win. If it does hit the scorecards, it should be his fight to win or lose. But man, I think Royval is game, and I would be worried about him maybe catching Elliott along the way.
Yep, I agree totally. I mean, I will say, these guys are kind of similar, right? Except Royval doesn't really have the takedowns. On the feet, both are very hittable, a little bit kind of wild. They're really unrefined. They don't really – on the feet, I don't think either of them really know what they're going to do before the fight starts. They just go in there, they're throwing crazy. I think Royval is definitely the more dynamic, younger guy on the feet where he can maybe hit a flying knee or a kick or something, and Elliott could go to sleep. We saw Elliott in his last fight, with Askar. I mean, it looked like he almost got knocked out, right, when he got hit with that big shot. And I mean, he was competitive the rest of the fight. It was impressive the way that he recovered and came back. But still, I mean, he's getting a lot older now. I think he's 33 for a flyweight. That's getting way up there. And he has fought a lot of high-level competition. But in the UFC, he's only 4-8 overall as a record, which is, it's not very good. But I will say, I mean, Royval, his takedown defense is really non-existent. So Elliott is going to be able to control where this fight goes. I mean, Royval is the guy that he wants to be on the ground, work his submission game off bottom, which, I mean, that's a low proposition in the UFC most of the time if you have a guy that wants to, get a guard submission in fights. But in this fight, man, I will tell you, I mean, it's like you want to pick Royval almost, right, to get the submission. And that's what I did. I ended up picking Royval. I don't have a lot of confidence in it. Not going to do a bet. So, I mean, as an underdog, usually if you lean that way, you want to play it. But that shows the level of confidence I have. I'm going to pick Royval. I think, maybe he'll hit a submission. He has really nice arm bars. I will say that the arm bar that he caught in his last fight, which was the fastest arm bar in LFA history, was really nice. He did get one as well over that. It was a former UFC guy in the first round. Joby Sanchez, he had an armbar over him as well recently. So, I mean, he definitely probably has a lot of confidence coming in here, and maybe he'll get the submission. So I'm going to say that, but I think it's hard. It's a coin flip, man. It's hard to decide who's going to win this one.
And let me just add to this. I mean, matchmaking-wise, I think the UFC kind of matches up for Royval to come in here and steal a win over a savvy vet and kind of make waves right away. So I think you're on the right track in a way, man. I think it's kind of catered for him to win. Now, will he get it? Like I said, I think personally it's Elliot's fight to win or lose. So if he's just sleeping and not taking Royval serious, if he takes him down and isn't cautious, I think you're absolutely right. We could see that. So for me, it's a dog or pass situation for sure at the betting window. I agree with you.
Yeah. Then up next here, we have Jamahal Hill taking Klidson Abreu. And in this fight, I mean, we have a guy who's really inexperienced in Jamahal Hill, only 7-0, taking on, a really experienced guy that's actually fought some good competition. Victor Nemkov, a guy like, Magomed Ankalaev, Sam Alvey. Even in his last fight, he fought Shamil Gamzatov, who was in the PFL. I actually thought he won that fight, but it was a close fight. And on the feet, I do favor Jamahal Hill quite a bit. I think he's a lot longer, and he's going to be a lot faster, in my opinion. I would say he has some of the best, body attack at 205. I mean, he really attacks the body very well, punches and kicks, very fast and accurate as well. But we saw in his last fight, he does have an issue with takedown defense, and he's very hittable on the feet also. We've seen him get dropped by guys like Daquan Townsend, things like that. But I think that the thing about Abreu is he just doesn't really go for many takedowns. He hasn't gotten any takedowns in the UFC. Even in a lot of his regional scene fights, he usually has to pull guard or go for a takedown and get it to the ground and try to hit a sweep or a submission off his back. And I will say, I mean, if he gets into a dominant position on Hill, I mean, it could be a big issue and he could get submitted very quickly. But I'm actually going to take the risk. I'm going to go with Jamahal Hill. I think he has a lot more upside. I think that he's the guy that could potentially – be a top 10, top 15 guy out of these two guys. He is only 7-0. It's hard to have a ton of confidence in him, but I like what I see so far. He had good get-ups when Stosic took him down, and I think Stosic is a lot more explosive with the takedowns than a guy like Abreu. I think if he could stuff a couple of Abreu shots, Abreu's just going to strike with them, and I think that's probably what's going to happen. So I'm going to go with Jamahal Hill, and I think he's going to hurt him with body shots to get him out of there. So I'm going to go with Hill via TKO in the later rounds here.
I could totally understand it. I mean, Hill is kind of the rising prospect, the undefeated fighter that's coming in here, and he should get the win. I mean, at the betting window right now, Hill is about -120 though, -130s out there as well, -125s, and there has been action coming in on Abreu. I personally think Abreu you can make a case for him being a favorite in this fight, a slight favorite, so the line could actually be flipped. Only because I think this is going to be Hill's toughest fight to date, because I think what Abreu brings to the table, I think he's a little bit more of a threat on the ground if he does get it there. And he does have some slick trips and some takedowns he can get. I mean, I am worried what you said. He doesn't go for a lot of takedowns or as often as you'd like to see him do. But at the same time, I think he puts enough pressure forward. I think he's a pretty tough guy. His striking for a grappling-based fighter is not really that bad. Now, of course, he doesn't want to play that game too long with Hill. I think obviously Hill has, like you said, the reach advantage. I mean, his striking is definitely pretty clean and accurate, and the guy can put people away. There's no question about that. So, but for me, I still think this is going to be a tough test and his toughest test to date. And I think Abreu is a savvy vet at this point, and I think he can put the pressure on him. I think he can make this an ugly fight. And if he gets Hill in some bad positions on the ground, I could see him actually finishing on the ground as well. So I've been kind of going back and forth a little bit more on this fight, but anything I would probably lean a little bit more towards Abreu. I just need to see Hill kind of pass this test. I know so far he's passed all the tests that have been thrown at him, but again, I think this is just a different level. I know Stosic, like you said, in his last fight, that was definitely, he's an explosive guy, a big, strong guy. So it makes a lot of sense, but I still think Abreu is a little bit slicker. He has a little bit more technical skill, and I think he could probably find a way to win this fight, but he is going to have to utilize that ground game to do so. Again, put the pressure on him a little bit and absorb some of that punishment or not take too much punishment to get it done. So I would actually lean Abreu a little bit here in this spot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was actually surprised when I saw that Hill was the favorite because, like I said, I mean, Abreu, he's fought, I think, over 20 fights. He's fought some pretty good guys, but it just shows, I guess, that people are very high on Hill. But But yeah, moving on to this next fight, I'll let you go first on this one. I'm not sure if you have looked too much into this replacement, but it's Daniel Rodriguez taking on Gabriel Green. Do you know much about Green?
Yeah, I mean, what I did, I did some quick research on him, obviously, right? And off the rip, I mean, obviously, it's kind of going to be a striker versus grappler type of matchup. I mean, Green doesn't have bad striking, though. I like what I see on the feet from him, but he even admitted himself that he's more of a grappling-based fighter. So I think Green is going to have to get this fight to the ground, and I don't think that's going to be an easy task for him. I mean, I think Rodriguez is game, man. I'll tell you what, I was very impressed. I wasn't sure. I mean, I kind of doubted him, honestly, in his debut against Means. I thought Means would be a little bit too much for him, but, man, the guy steps up. I mean, he stepped up, and he made that fight phenomenal for himself. Obviously looked really solid against a very game Tim Mean. So I think Rodriguez is just going to keep on rising at this point. And this is a great matchup for him because if he doesn't get taken down, I think that his striking is going to be a little bit too much for Green from what we've seen. And also Green is moving up a weight class. I know it's short notice, so it kind of is not a bad idea, right? Because if he normally fights at lightweight, I mean, he's not going to have to cut all that extra weight, obviously, to, I think 170 is going to actually be an okay spot for him, put it that way. But I just don't like the scenario. Short notice, facing a very underrated striker that has a ton of power and very good experience thus far, coming off of a very solid debut win. That's going to raise his confidence level to another, spot, I think, in this point. So I see Rodriguez rolling on here. I mean, the line opened around minus 300. It dipped down to like minus 265. And now what I'm seeing on the Donbest screen is about minus 350, minus 360s out there as well. So it looks like Rodriguez is probably the side. I mean, it's hard to argue that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I did go back and I looked at Gabriel Green, and I agree. I mean, his striking isn't bad. He throws a lot of volume, a lot of kicks and punches in combination. He's pretty tricky. I mean, he'll try to hide, head kicks behind jabs, things like that, but very hittable guy. And his two losses, he was knocked out in the first round, which Rodriguez is a guy that comes forward, hits really hard, throws a lot of punches and bunches. Good boxer. He's very good with the basics on the feet. And he's a 10th Planet guy as well on the ground, pretty good on the ground. We've seen him get some takedowns, steal rounds that way. And with Gabriel Green, he is a decent grappler. He has some tricky stuff on the ground, good leg locker. But when you see him shoot a lot of takedowns, I mean, he gets stuffed on a lot of takedowns where he's real deep on takedowns and he still can't finish them. And those are against 155ers. So I think Rodriguez probably going to be a lot more physical than Green here, and it's going to be really hard for him to take him down. So I think how this fight's probably going to go, I think that he might get hit early, get a little bit, feel the power, get a little bit worried, go for some grappling, and Rodriguez denies it and then takes him out in the first round. So I kind of agree with the line. I think that, Gabriel Green may be able to go back to 55 and do well, but this is a rough matchup against Rodriguez. I agree with you. I think that the fight with Kevin Holland would have been interesting. That would have been a fight much more on Rodriguez's level, but this one I think he's probably going to roll here.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I feel bad that Holland, got injured and pulled out because I was looking forward to that fight for sure. Because that would have been a really good test for both guys. Rodriguez, if he passes that test, wow, that's phenomenal. And he might have been a live dog there. I mean, we saw the price on Holland of about minus 200 or so. So that would have been a tough fight, I think, even for Holland. Holland's looked great, but that would have been an awesome fight. I agree.
What do you think about Holland going to 170? You like that for him?
I don't know, man. I mean, obviously he can do it. I mean, or he wouldn't have kind of, volunteered it. But I don't know. Sometimes it takes a little bit too much out of you. And again, with the power of Rodriguez and making that weight cut, I'm not sure. That's what I'm saying. I would have probably gave Rodriguez a better chance than most to pull off the upset against Holland there. So I would have loved to see it play out. I mean, we'll get to see Holland, I'm sure, back in the cage soon. I mean, is he? I don't know if he's going to stay at 170 though. You think he's going to probably try the welterweight division now?
I think so because, I mean, we did see him weigh in at, I think he was, 182 for that last fight. And he keeps calling out welterweights like Mickey Gall and all that. So I think he's going to try to go back down there and, see what happens for a fight or two. Maybe if he looks good, he'll stay down there. But I don't know. I mean, I know he's calling out Marvin Vettori too, so he's kind of all over the place. But.
Yeah, hey, you know what? Credit to him. He's getting his name out there, though. And the fighters or the fans want to see fighters like that. You know what I mean? That are out there confidently calling people out and then performing. I mean, his performance in his last fight was phenomenal. That was just a thing of beauty, really. I mean, nobody expected it to end that quick, right? I mean, just awesome performance. So Holland is on the right track for sure. Can't wait to see him back in there.
Then up next here, we got this is the main event of the prelims here with Katlyn Chookagian taking on Antonina Shevchenko. And this is an interesting fight, right? Because Katlyn is getting somewhat of a revenge here. She's fighting the sister of Valentina. It's going to be interesting in this fight too with no crowd. with Valentina being so loud, Caitlin being so loud, it's going to be a interesting fight there. But man, I mean, I don't really agree with the line here with Antonina being a slight favorite because Caitlin just has so much more experience than her. They both have a similar style on the feet where I do think Antonina's maybe a little bit cleaner or throws a little bit more techniques, but I think Caitlin is faster. I mean, Antonina is 35 years old as well. She's not like a young prospect. She already had, I believe, 40, 50 fights in Muay Thai kickboxing. And she definitely, if they clinch up, I think she's very good in the clinch, but she's not going to want to take it to the ground like Valentina did against Caitlin. Caitlin is a Renzo Gracie girl. She's, I believe, a John Danaher brown belt. She has a very good armbar, and I think if it goes to the ground, she'll have a chance to sweep or submit Antonina. And I think on the feet, I think Caitlin is going to be able to use her style, man, and get 2 of those 3 rounds. I think she's going to be able to be a little bit quicker, maybe throw a little bit more volume, land a few more shots, and get a close decision victory here. But this is another close fight.
It is a real close fight. You know, I could see what you're saying with Chookagian, especially, you know, that revenge factor. It's got to be in the back of her head. She doesn't want to lose to both sisters for sure. But I'm kind of coming on the other side of this only because I like the progression in both Shevchenko sisters. If you look at Valentina before she even entered the UFC compared to her first fight and now, I mean, wow, she's gotten so much better. I mean, she's just rounded out her game so well. I mean, now she's got wrestling, she's got a tremendous ground game, and obviously her striking has always been there, right? Her conditioning is a lot better too. And I see a lot of the same things with Antonina in this spot here. I think Shevchenko really, I mean, iron sharpens iron, so to speak, and you cannot get a better training partner than her sister. So for me, I think she continues to improve. I mean, we've seen now flashes of ground game as well. I think Chookagian's ground game is a bit underrated. We don't get to see enough of it in the UFC thus far. So I think a lot of people aren't really sure what it's like, but I mean, she's definitely a very skilled jiu-jitsu practitioner, and I think she can cause Shevchenko a lot of problems in this spot. But overall, I think it's going to be a fairly close fight, competitive fight at 29-28, maybe a split decision type of fight overall. But I do lean a little bit more towards Shevchenko. I think her improvement fight by fight, she's getting more confident now as well. And I mean, to me, I think Chookagian's almost plateaued out a little bit. I mean, you know, it's hard to say. I know, like you said, Shevchenko's 35 years old, so she's not a young gun, but in MMA years, she kind of is still. So yeah. I like that improvement factor, and I think she could actually edge this decision out. I think that she's going to be a little bit more impressive on the scorecards to the judges. But again, judges are always a wild card. I say it every podcast, every show I'm on. You can never trust the judging at all, and especially in high-level women's fights. I mean, it's almost a coin flip type of scenario here. So a tough one kind of at the betting window. Right now, what do we have here? It's about minus 130. It's actually dropping. It got up to like 150-ish. Now there is action coming back on Chookagian. I think there's going to be two-way sharp action on this fight as well, because early on we did see some sharp action to hit Shevchenko at the sports books. Now we're seeing some come back in on Chookagian as well. So there's a lot of solid opinions on both sides of this, and it really should be a really solid fight. Now, just imagine if Shevchenko steps in here and beats Chookagian. I mean, she's going to really propel herself. I mean, Chookagian just got off a title shot, like you said, against her sister. So she's going to really be in the mix here. But it's an important fight for both ladies, no doubt. But I'm leaning a little bit more towards Shevchenko in this spot.
Yeah, that's what I was going to – you think do you actually think Antonina could potentially be like someone that could be in the title picture, anything like that? Or you think – or what do you think about that?
I mean, she's still, like I said, if she wins this fight, I could really, you can make a case for it, right? I mean, I don't see her. I mean, how could she fight her sister? That's crazy in my opinion, right? I don't know how the UFC is going to kind of work that out. And I don't know if the sisters would want to fight each other, really. I don't think she's ready for Valentina yet, obviously, even if she does win this fight and then she gets thrown in there somehow, some way. No, I mean, she's not ready for that. But I mean, honestly, Valentina's just a head and shoulders above everybody. If you look at the division, there's not anybody realistically close right now. I mean, that's how much better she is than everybody. For me, pound for pound, Valentina's the best female fighter out there. I know a lot of people argue Nunes. She beat Nunes, beat her twice, but you know what? I'm talking pound for pound. Those were close fights, and I really think that Shevchenko is just a better overall fighter. So again, I think a lot of that rubs off on her sister, and I think her sister's going to be game. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do if she does beat Chookagian. I'm not sure which direction they're going to go with her. Really, I'm curious to see myself. But I don't think she's there yet as far as getting a title shot after this. I mean, but the way the division is, I mean, you never know. She could be a fight away right after this.
Yeah. Yep, and I'll let you go first on this one. Another women's fight, Mackenzie Dern taking on Hannah Cyphers. So what do you think about this one?
I mean, styles make fights here, and I think a lot of people, see the blueprint for Dern getting some takedowns here, making this kind of her fight, getting it to the ground, and she's going to be worlds ahead of Cyphers on the ground. But on the feet, I'll tell you what, Cyphers is probably a little bit underrated, man. She has some pop in her punches. Her takedown defense is getting a little bit better. But, I mean, Mackenzie Dern's one of these chicks that we've seen already. I mean, I know her loss to Rebus, maybe has some question marks raised now about her, but at the same time, Rebus is an absolute amazing fighter. We've seen that now. I mean, she's at the top of the food chain in the weight class as well. So that's not necessarily a bad loss, I think, for Dern. And Dern isn't afraid to get in your face and throw bombs either. So I think the stand-up exchanges are going to be interesting. I think Cyphers is obviously the cleaner striker. I think, if the fight plays out on the feet, Cyphers is definitely going to have her moments. But I think eventually Dern will get her back, get her to the floor, and probably, utilize her ground game and look for the finish on the ground. So at the current price right now, what is it now? It looks like it's Dern about minus 440. There's minus 400s out there, 410s on the Don Best screen. So minus 400, man. I mean, it's tough to bet this fight, honestly, because I think the value, it might open to like minus 250 and the value's all gone. At minus 250, I can understand taking a shot at Dern, obviously, but at minus 400, I think Cyphers might be underestimated a little bit here. Not that I'm saying I would bet her. I'd probably stay away from this fight at the current line right now. But Cyphers is probably better than we all are giving her credit for. But just styles make fights, and this is an awful matchup, I think. I think Dern should win this fight.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's hard to make a big argument for Hannah Cyphers here. I mean, another thing to compound what you said, Mackenzie Dern, she's one of the biggest girls in the division. I mean, we've seen her miss weight multiple times. And Cyphers, I mean, she might be the smallest girl in the whole UFC. So that's another big factor. I mean, Dern, we've seen her drop goes with punches, so she definitely has power as well. And I just think if she gets it to the ground here, I mean, we've seen Cyphers show deficiencies on the ground defensively, like versus Angela Hill, things like that. And I think Dern probably could exploit that. So it's hard to, pick against Dern. But I do agree at the current line, I mean, her defense on the feet isn't the best. And, I mean, it's not the weirdest thing in the world if Cyphers went in there and landed a shot on her and knocked her out. But, I definitely, think Dern will probably get the victory here. And it'll probably be you think it'll be a finish? I think it'll probably be a finish.
Yeah, it'll probably be a finish on the ground. I would assume that's the case. I mean, you never know. I mean, Dern is such a high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner, obviously one of the best females of all time in the grappling realm, so she should get the finish. But, we've seen stranger things. I don't think Cyphers can't survive against her on the ground, though.
Yeah. Now, here on the next one, Roosevelt Roberts versus Brock Weaver. And I'll go first on this one because I have to get a lot of crap on this pick. I mean, it's kind of off-the-wall pick. I did go with Brock Weaver on this one. And there's like a few reasons here. I mean, I do think Roosevelt Roberts is a good prospect, but I just don't think he changes much fight to fight. I don't think he hasn't improved the way that I'd like to see him improve. He fights pretty similar, and I just don't like his footwork very much. He definitely backs up. He allows guys to, put his back against the cage. And I think Weaver, if he's recovered from that knee that he took a few months ago, he's definitely a durable guy. He walks guys down. I mean, I've seen him go in there bare knuckle against Joe Riggs, who was way bigger than him. He ate a lot of big shots in that fight. So Roberts isn't the biggest puncher either. So I definitely think that Weaver will be able to at least back him up and get him towards the cage. And that's where he's going to have to, lean on him, throw some body shots, try to wear him down, eat shots. Because early on, the speed factor for Roberts is going to be, he's going to be a lot faster with the straight punches. And he probably, has more techniques with the kicks, with flying knees, things like that. But I do think Weaver is more technical with the boxing. He'll attack the body more, better combinations. And I think if he could get Roberts a little bit tired, crushing himself, put combos together, and then I think if he can do that, he could potentially get takedowns as well. But Roberts, I will say, if Roberts gets on top, he's a very good, top control guy himself. And he has decent takedowns, but he usually gets those when he can back guys up. I don't know if he's going to be able to back Weaver up and get the takedowns, but I do think if he gets Weaver down, he'll probably ride him out. I've noticed he's not super offensive on the ground. He's not very dangerous, but, good back takes, good mount, good control. And I don't know if Weaver will be able to get back to his feet. So I could see Roberts winning in multiple ways, but I think the line is way off here. I think it should be, maybe Roberts minus 155, minus 170. So, I do feel like taking a shot on Weaver, for me at least, is warranted. I think, we've seen him go against guys like Devin Smith, and he looked much better in that fight. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe he was a little bit nervous versus Vargas in his debut, but Don't think he looked the best there. I think he's going to look a little bit better here, and I'm going to go with him to win a decision.
Wow, that's awesome. Because right now I was looking at the screen. It looks like you get Weaver at plus 290-ish or plus 285s out there as well. So, yeah, I mean, I can see it. I mean, I can't bet Roberts in this spot. I do think he's got, like you said, the athleticism. He's got the speed. He's got a nasty guillotine choke too, man. I mean, if Weaver has to be careful. I think Weaver overall, though, is a pretty sound defensive fighter as a whole. And you know what? The problem with me, I mean, I would stay away from Roberts in this spot is because, I mean, Weaver's the type of guy that will push a pace. He's going to be there all 3 rounds, for the most part. And he's a grinder. He's going to push forward. Like you said, he's going to try to get some takedowns, and his boxing's not bad. He's underrated in this spot for sure. So for me, this is a sleeper fight, and you might be right, man. I mean, maybe we're counting Weaver out here in this spot. So I'm not confident at all, like as far as the betting window for sure. I think you cannot bet Roberts in this spot. So it's probably a dog or pass situation. I'm staying away from it personally. I just think, I mean, I do like what I see from Roberts at times overall for the most part, because like I said, I think he does have that athleticism, that explosiveness, and again, some good wrestling overall. I know he's been put on his back though too at times. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. But it's hard to pick against Roberts for me, in my opinion. But I can understand what you're saying at the betting window. The line is a bit off. I mean, I think people are a little bit too overconfident in Roberts in this spot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, I believe that in his last fight, it was a terrible performance, and I think that probably is part of the reason why the line is the way it is as well. But, man, I mean, like you said, with him being a pressure guy, I mean, we've seen Roberts before as well in the Vince Michelle fight, where he told his corner that he quit in the middle of the fight, which, I mean, that's not, like you said, I would never be able to bet on a guy like that against someone that is going to be there for all 3 rounds. And so I just feel like it's maybe Weaver will get it done. But, yeah, it is we'll see what happens with that one. But up next here, Spike Carlyle, Billy Quarantillo, another fight that I think could be a really fun fight. I'll let you go first on this one here.
Man, I like what I see. I mean, for both guys at certain spots. Quarantillo, I mean, obviously he's coming in here as a slight favorite. Let me see what the current betting line is. Minus 135, it's dropping. It's like minus 135, minus 140 overall now. There's more action coming in on Carlyle. I understand. I mean, Carlyle has that kind of power. I mean, he displayed it even with his elbows, man. Obviously, he's got good kicks. He's got lots of power everywhere the fight takes place. He's got good ground and pound. Wrestling, I mean, it's a bit sketchy at times. I think we've seen some good takedown defense from him at times, but then you also see him kind of gas out and wear out and get taken down at will too in the past, if you look back at some of his fights. But he is the type of fighter, Carlyle, that's getting better. I mean, he's definitely improving his overall game. But I don't trust his cardio. I don't trust if he doesn't get it done in the first round, I think Quarantillo is actually going to take over and probably finish in the second round. It's one of those scenarios, I think, early on. And for live betting, I mean, I've talked to a few people and they agree with this. I think for live betting, you could see Carlyle maybe steal the first round, and then that people might, the odds makers out there might make a mistake and kind of overvalue him a little bit. And there might be a bet to make on Quarantillo. I mean, because I think he is the better overall fighter. I think he's a little bit more technically sound. I think his conditioning's a lot better, and I expect him to be there. I mean, if he could weather that storm, though, I mean, like I said, Carlyle is definitely going to be dangerous early on in that fight. And I mean, his power sometimes, I mean, you've seen people just crumble under that power. So, I mean, that's yet to be determined here in this spot. But I think Quarantillo's game enough that he could probably be defensively sound enough to actually kind of weather that early storm and get the win. So I'm picking Quarantillo. And as the price drops, there might be some value opening up, honestly. I mean, it looks like it's heading towards a pick. I don't think it'll get that low. And I'm sure at some point we'll see some action back on Quarantillo as well. But I do think it's a favorite or pass situation in this spot.
Yeah, I agree. I actually went with Billy as well. And a lot of the same points. I mean, Spike, I will say, in that first round, I mean, he's a lot to handle. That finish on the long cruise was crazy with that elbow, and then the ground and pound was, I mean, pretty nasty finish. Probably one of the best finishes of the year. And but the thing is, I agree with you. I mean, his technique on the feet and in terms of the wrestling on the ground is just all very wild. I mean, just full bore. And I've seen him in fights where after the first round, he's flopping to his back and things like that, extremely exhausted. And like, I agree. I think if he doesn't get it done in the first round, first 3.5 minutes, I think Billy is going to be able to, start walking him down, putting those combinations together. Because Billy's a guy that, he does that in almost every fight where he'll sort of weather the storm, then he'll start, attacking the body, hitting his takedowns, and takes over the fight. And in his last fight against Jacob Coburn, I mean, it's hard to really read much about through that. Coburn didn't really have a great performance. Billy was able to go in there and kind of not face any adversity. So here I think it's going to be a little different. I think that Spike will test him in that first round, probably maybe even hurt him, drop him, something like that. But I think that Billy will be able to weather that storm, and I think he's going to probably take over and win those later rounds and get the victory. So I'm going to agree with you on that one and go with Billy Q there. But, I do like Spike Carlyle, man. I mean, he has that thing about him where maybe he could become like a star type guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. Even his nickname, man. I mean, what's his nickname here off the top of my head? Ginger. What?
Yeah, Alpha Ginger.
Alpha. Yeah. I mean, it's cool, catchy. He's he wore those pink ankle bracelets or whatever, ankle braces in his last fight too. So I mean, there is something catchy about him for sure. And if he goes out there and keeps finishing people, he's gonna pick up some fans. But right now, again, that's yet to be determined. I think he's got to kind of prove himself a little bit more to me still, because again, looking back through even beyond his UFC fights, I mean, there's just a lot of sloppiness in his game overall. And again, can't trust the conditioning. So we're on the same page though for sure here.
Yeah. And then next year we have Blago Ivanov taking on Augusto Sakai, and this is the co-main event. Not the greatest fight in my opinion, but it's an interesting fight. It's a younger guy kind of trying to work his way up into maybe that top 10-ish of the division. But I'm actually going to go with Blago. I think he's going to be able to kind of keep his spot here, just because Sakai. I do think Sakai is going to be the guy going for it, throwing more volume, which is what makes this fight competitive, right? Because I think Blagoy is a lot more technical. He's more skilled. He has a really nice lead hand, good counters. But Sakai, if he can eat those shots, is going to be throwing more volume than Ivanov probably going forward. And I'm not sure. I think Ivanov maybe potentially will try to hit some takedowns here. Maybe he'll get some trips, and that could maybe make the fight a little bit easier to score if he does do that. But I'm going to go with Ivanov just because I think that Augusto Sakai kind of chases people. He doesn't cut the cage off very well. We saw that against Arlovsky, where Arlovsky was able to, land and get out. And I feel like Arlovsky definitely won that fight. But I think Ivanov is going to be able to be a little bit better with the counter striking, land and move, maybe hit a takedown or two, and just win a decision here. So I'm going to go with Blagoy Ivanov. But I actually think a good play here is for the fight to go the distance. Usually that's not a good play for a heavyweight fight, but Blagoy, man, I mean, he has one of the best chins we've ever seen in MMA. I mean, we saw him eat those bombs against Derek Lewis, and Sakai's never been finished either. Like I said, Ivanov is kind of a low-volume guy. He's been into a lot of decisions recently, so I could see this going to a decision, but I'm going to go with Ivanov to get the win here.
Yeah, you know what? I can totally understand that. I think this is kind of one of those pick'em is about accurate right now, right? It's dropping back down. I think, we're seeing exactly a pick'em in some places right now, minus 115. Sakai, the line kind of raised on Sakai a little bit. I'm leaning his way slightly. I mean, Ivanov has made me some money too. So, I mean, I know what kind of durable fighter, underrated fighter he is. But I just think overall, I'm more impressed a little bit with Sakai's striking. I think he could utilize that space a little bit more. Like you said, he's going to be a little bit more active. I think he's going to have a more diverse striking skill set as he throws his techniques, where Ivanov, I'm sorry, I always butcher his name back and forth here, but Ivanov is one of these guys, again, he's going to have to utilize that boxing. And if he does get the trips, like you said, if he gets a trip takedown, that's going to definitely change the complexion of this fight. So Sakai has to be wary about that. But I just think it's going to be another close split decision type of fight again in the heavyweight division. I do think, as you said, I mean, if anything, the over is tempting because both these guys are so durable. I mean, Ivanov is just hard to get out of there. I mean, he's one of the toughest fighters, not just in the heavyweight division, I've ever seen personally. I mean, his past history as well. He's been stabbed in the heart. I mean, just all sorts of craziness with this guy, and he's tough as nails. So, I mean, he's going to come in here. He's going to fight. He's going to make it a close fight. I just think Sakai can outpoint him basically at the end of 3 rounds and kind of edge out a very close competitive decision. But it's going to be another typical Ivanov fight. I think it's going to be really close, and, I could realistically see it going either way. So if you can get plus money on either side here, it's probably the way to go. And again, I think the line kind of raised towards Sakai's favorite. Now more action coming back in on Ivanov. So it's going to be an awesome fight, though. This is definitely an underrated, off the radar kind of heavyweight matchup here in this spot. And the winner is going to definitely take a big step forward.
Yeah. Yep. And then here on the main event, I'll let you go first on this one. Big fight here. Tyron Woodley versus Gilbert Burns. Usually don't get to see Tyron Woodley on free TV. So big fight here. What do you think about it?
Man, I guess I'm on a boat by myself here. It seems like overall, because I'm picking Woodley to win this fight, man. A lot of people I've seen the Twitterverse and everybody, and a lot of solid opinions picking Burns to win this fight. And it's hard not to love Burns' skill set. I mean, the guy, for being one of the best grapplers ever in the sport in the octagon. I mean, the guy's such a phenomenal BJJ practitioner, as we talked about, just world class. I mean, his stand-up game has actually evolved really nice. I mean, he's one of probably the best grapplers, well-rounded, that he's evolved his game in the stand-up end of it. that I've seen in a long time, because the guy definitely has power. He mixes in those kicks really well. And he's not afraid to come forward and mix things up, and he's going to be a little bit more active. So I get why everybody's kind of pointing towards Burns in this spot. But for me personally, I think people are just underestimating Woodley. I know he had a bad fight against Usman in his last matchup where he lost the title, and he's been out for a while. But I still think, man, if there's anything left in the tank of Woodley, he's going to win this fight. This is a favorable matchup for him. I think he's a very smart fighter. I think his takedown defense is keen enough where he's going to probably be able to keep this fight upright. And what people are not considering, I think, with Burns is, I mean, he's a bit chinny. He's been knocked out in the past. He's been rocked in several of his fights. And also, he does tend to slow down as the fights progress a little bit. And I know Woodley's not the most active fighter. And again, people can say stuff about his cardio as well. But to me, at least he's proven in the championship rounds. He's proven in round 4, round 5. He's been in there, and he's capable of actually finishing fights late. So for me, I think he's going to end up clipping, even if he's losing early on. If he's losing the first couple rounds due to inactivity a little bit, I think he's going to end up catching Burns along the way. I think Burns defensively is a little bit more of a concern, and I just think people are severely underestimating Woodley. I actually bet Woodley already at minus 145, minus 155. Now the line's about minus 185, 190. So I did get a good price, and thankfully I wouldn't add, and I wouldn't bet it closer to minus 200. I would definitely stay away, because we just don't know what we're going to see from Woodley. Maybe he is past it at this point. Maybe he's not as motivated as all of us think he is, or, people are saying that could be a question as well. So there's a lot to factor in, a lot of question marks, I guess, around Woodley right now. And I know Burns is kind of riding this hot streak, and he deserves to be in the spot. He deserves to get this test, because if he beats Woodley, man, I mean, the title shot's not far off, right? I mean, this is definitely kind of a title eliminator type of matchup here, but I think it's a little bit too much too soon. I think that Woodley is being underrated here. I think Woodley, I mean, that explosiveness, that speed, and that knockout ability, and the accuracy that he has is probably going to pay dividends here, and I think he's going to end up catching Burns and knocking him out along the way. So that's kind of the way I feel about it.
Yeah, man, I was on Woodley too. I hear what you're saying. Everyone seems like they're on Gilbert Burns this week, but man, I mean, it's like, I think they're kind of similar fighters in terms of, they both have that big one-punch power. I think Burns is obviously the guy that's going to be more likely to go forward, throw the more volume. But Woodley, man, I mean, it's hard. People always say they're going to throw more volume than Woodley until they're in there with him. And he's cocked and he's ready to counter. And it's just like he freezes a lot of guys, where I think that Burns – I don't know, man. I mean, he's a guy that's fought at 155. He was much smaller than Damian Maia. We saw that. And like you said, Burns has been knocked out by guys like Dan Hooker. He's been rocked in quite a few fights. We've seen him even get taken down and controlled against guys like Michel Prazeres. That was a long time ago. But, I think that Woodley, I think it's going to be typical Woodley fight. I don't think he's going to change his style or anything, but I think it's going to be back it up to the cage, and I think he's eventually going to land that big shot and knock Gilbert Burns out. I just think he's bigger, faster, stronger than Gilbert Burns. I think he hits a little harder. He's more explosive. I mean, like you said, unless it's the outside things, the rapping being on TMZ, he's just not into it anymore. But I don't know. It seems like he's on Twitter calling everyone out. I mean, hopefully he's not just talking. Hopefully he really is in there putting the work in, and he's going to come in and show, why he's one of the best welterweight champions in UFC history. I mean, a lot of people are jumping off the bandwagon, and the only guy that he lost to is Usman. It's not like he's lost 3 in a row or something like that. It's, he has been off for a while. I mean, Burns, I think, has won 4 fights since the last time that he's fought. But, man, it's hard for me to say Gilbert Burns is going to come in here and beat a guy like Tyron Woodley. So I agree with you. I'm going to go with Tyron to get the win. And speaking about Tyron, what do you think about his friend Colby leaving at AT2?
That's crazy, man. I just had an interview with Colby not too long ago. So, I mean, it was a pretty cool interview too as well. I really enjoyed it. It's a bit surprising. I mean, but at the same time, not shocked, because, I mean, he's not getting along with anybody from that camp. I mean, he's ripping on JJ all the time. I mean, some pretty, nasty stuff that he's saying about her as well. Obviously, Masvidal situation. So not really that surprising. But at the same time, I do give Colby a lot of credit. I mean, he is who he is. I mean, he's not afraid to speak his mind. And you know what? That Usman fight was awesome, man. I mean, I think up until the stoppage or whatnot, he was game and he was in that fight. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight again. If I'm Usman, I wouldn't take that rematch. Why would you want to? You won that fight. You want to move on. So I get Usman's point. But at the same time, if I'm Colby, I would definitely want that fight again and, some redemption out there. So I think there's some good fights ahead for Colby, and I think he's definitely one of the best welterweights on the planet. I think he's proven that, with his wrestling pedigree and the improvements that he's made. I think there's a lot of good left in Colby as well. And again, his persona, his personality, he's picking up a lot of fans. But the split from ATT, I mean, I'm a little upset, disappointed by it, because I think obviously that's done him a lot of good throughout his career. I mean, the training that he's gotten there has kind of helped him be where he's at right now. But I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, hopefully he continues to, keep that level of training regardless of where. I'm not sure where he's ending up at right now or what he's doing. I think he said he's his own team or something. And I mean, I just hope that he does get a solid coach and some good help here. But I'm not really that shocked by it. A bit surprising though, too.
Yeah, I did hear Gilbert Burns was saying that he's over at MMA Masters now. So that's where he's going to be at. But yeah, that whole welterweight division is crazy, right? With Usman was supposed to be fighting Masvidal, now it's Usman versus Conor McGregor. But man, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on. This was awesome. Hopefully we could do more of these, and yeah, hope everyone liked it. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and yeah, thanks for coming on, breaking down the card. Is there anything you want to plug or you want to say to end it out?
No, I mean, not much at all. Thank you for having me on. This was great. I always, like I said, value your opinion significantly. You got to check out MMA Oddsbreaker Premium. I know that you have picks on there as well now. We have 8 handicappers overall, and they're some of the best cappers in the game, really. And like I said, you're a part of that team now, which I'm thrilled about. So you guys go to MMAOddsbreaker.com, click on that Premium Picks tab, and check out all the picks that we have available for this weekend and beyond. I mean, we have a lot of valuable information on there. And if you want to make some money, jump on board.
Yep, 100%. Totally agree with that. Check that out. And yeah, man. All right, guys. Peace.